Hello again, everyone. Welcome to week number 3 of our New Earth web class. And again, I thank you. Eckhart Tolle thanks you for joining us as we bring students and seekers together to discuss our latest book club selection, Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. We did something last week that was unprecedented. You said it's never been done before on television, where you just sit there in silence. And I thought a lot of people responded to the sense of connection from that. So you want to do that again?
Yes.
Let's do that again.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So you're going to lead us in silence.
And simply become aware that you are breathing. The air flows in and out, and you feel yourself breathing. Air flows in and out of the body.
In reading books such as Tolle's, it's really opened my eyes up to a new way of thinking, a new form of spirituality that doesn't always align with the teachings of Christianity. So my question is to you, Oprah, how have you reconciled these spiritual teachings with your Christian beliefs?
I've reconciled it because I was able to open my mind about the absolute indescribable hugeness of that which we call God. I took God out of the box because I grew up in the Baptist church, and there were, rules and, belief systems and doctrine. And I happened to be sitting in church in my late 20s, and I was going to this church where you had to get there at, 8 o'clock in the morning, or you couldn't get a seat, and a very charismatic minister, and everybody was just, into the sermon. And this great minister was preaching about how great God was and how omniscient and omnipresent and God is everything. And then he said, and the Lord thy God is a jealous God. And I was, caught up in the rapture of that moment until he said jealous. And something struck me. And I was like, I think about 27 or 28. I was thinking, God is all, God is omnipresent, God is all. And God's also jealous. God is jealous of me. And something about that didn't feel right in my spirit, because I believe that God is love and that God is in all things. And so that's when the search for something more than doctrine started to stir within me. And I love this quote that Eckhart has. This is one of my favorite quotes in chapter 1, where he says, "Man made God in his own image. The eternal, the infinite, and unnameable was reduced to a mental idol that you had to believe in and worship as my God or our God."
Jesus says, you are the light of the world. That means you are the consciousness in which the world appears, is seen.
So you believe what happens to us at death when the body dies? You don't have a belief.
I don't give it any thought.
You don't. God, in the essence of all consciousness, isn't something to believe. God is.
Yes.
God is. And God is a feeling experience, not a believing experience.
That's right.
And if your religion is a believing experience, if God for you is still about a belief, then it's not truly God. And whether you're religious or not, I hope that this show will begin to help you find a deeper connection to begin to live a richer, more fulfilling life, to understand why you're really here on earth. And before we get started, I want us all just to take a deep breath wherever you are, listening to me, watching right now. Let's breathe ourselves into this present moment. Thank you for that. Okay, for our Best Life class today, we're joined by some of my favorite spiritual teachers. Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, who's the founder of Agape International Spiritual Center. All of you Agape members out there, yes, he's here. And author of the new spiritual book. It's called Spiritual Liberation. And Elizabeth Lesser, who is the author of The Seeker's Guide and Broken Open. She also co-founded the Omega Institute. And the Reverend Ed Bacon, who is rector of All Saints Episcopal Church in Pasadena, who doesn't have a book, but welcome.
Thank you. That's nice.
Yes.
I read their books.
You read their book. Reverend Ed, we're going to start with you. Let's define spirituality. Go ahead. Tell us what you think it means.
Well, I agree with you about connection. It is about our being connected with one another and being connected with the cosmos.
It is the process of being healed, forgiven, empowered to go into the world, to be fully alive. But for me, the key to that, the doorway to that, is having an experience of being unconditionally and fully loved.
Elizabeth, your definition?
To me, spirituality it's an instinct. Like we have an instinct to go to sleep, to drink water, to eat. There's this instinct inside of each and every one of us that there's more to life than meets the eye. There's something greater out there than our daily grind. And spirituality is the fearlessness to look at that something else. What is it? It's the fearlessness to ask the big questions. Who am I? What's my purpose in life? Where do we go when we die? And how do we live a fully alive, meaningful, giving, generous life when we're here?
Okay, so everybody's asked that question of yourself. Is this all there is? Well, spirituality answers that question.
That's right.
Yes. Reverend Beckwith.
Right. When we're connected to the love, the peace, the harmony, the wisdom, these are all eternal qualities. They're not transitory, they're not temporary. They're real and they're eternal. And so an individual is connected to those qualities and begins to exude them and express them. At that moment, they're in the spirit. They're in that spiritual realm. And when an individual is feeling that connection of love and peace and harmony, they're feeling their real essence, that which you take with you when you die.
All right. And so today what we want to do, and if you all have questions, please, because a lot of this is very confusing to people, but I'm telling you, when you understand that you are more than your body, that you really are the spirit in the body, in a human body that's experiencing this life as a human being, but that you really are a spiritual entity, come from whatever you want to call it. I call it God. A lot of people call it source or universal energy. I call it God. I think God doesn't get hung up on the titles. It's the people that get hung up on the titles. But when you begin to realize that you are more than your body, that your purpose is greater than your profession or your career, that every life, because you were born, you have a right to be here, and there is a calling on your life. It means you live your life without fear, and you know that no matter what happens, you are going to be all right. You are going to be all right. That's what spirituality is.
Okay, well, of course religion is outdated in the 21st century. Most religious people, to respond, it's true that you may get many people saying they're religious, but none of them, in the first world at least, in the developed world, to first approximation, actually believe the doctrines of their faith. They like to be religious. They want to believe, to use something from the X-Files. They want to believe in believing. So that Catholics don't really believe that when a priest holds a wafer, it turns into the body of Christ. No one really believes that nonsense. I have, in the last week, spent more time talking to Jewish atheists than I can count. Most of the Jews I know are atheists, and they say it's perfectly reasonable to be Jewish atheists because there's other aspects of the Jewish religion they like. So the point is that the doctrines of religion are outdated, and that's for good reason. They were created by Bronze Age or Iron Age peasants who didn't even know the Earth orbited the sun. So the wisdom in those books is not wisdom at all. And people take the wisdom. In fact, we've actually learned something over the last 20 centuries, and science has taught us how the world works. Now, for science, the interesting thing as a scientist is that God is completely irrelevant to science. Most scientists don't spend enough time thinking about God to even know if they're atheists, because they try and understand how the world works, and God never enters into it. It's just completely irrelevant. And in fact, the more we've learned about the natural world, the more we've learned that you don't need any divine intervention to explain anything.